The winter sky over Europe hung low and iron-gray, heavy with snow and fate. Maps trembled on war tables. Radios hissed. Engines growled in the distance. By late 1944, the Third Reich was bleeding. From Normandy to the German border, the front lines were collapsing inward like a dying star. Cities burned. Rail lines lay twisted. Fuel was measured in minutes, not miles. And yet, deep inside concrete bunkers and candlelit command rooms, the German High Command still clung to one final belief. One last army. One last reserve. One last chance. They had saved it for the moment of greatest need. And now, that moment had arrived. In the West, Allied forces surged forward with relentless pressure. American infantry advanced through frozen forests. British artillery pounded river crossings. Air superiority strangled movement by day. German units fought with discipline, but they fought while retreating. Always retreating. Then came the rupture. A sudden, violent thrust. Fast. Unforgiving. Led by a man who did not believe in waiting. General George S. Patton. His tanks did not pause to consolidate. They did not dig in. They charged. Columns of Sherman tanks tore through narrow roads, engines screaming, tracks chewing frozen mud. Supply trucks followed at reckless speed. Patton pushed his men beyond exhaustion, beyond doctrine, beyond what the enemy believed possible. He was hunting something. The Germans did not know it yet, but Patton was already moving toward their last army in reserve. Inside the German High Command headquarters, the mood was brittle. Officers stood stiffly around a massive table littered with maps, pins, and red grease pencil markings. Every update made the room quieter. No one wanted to speak the truth aloud. Field Marshal Rundstedt broke the silence. They are advancing faster than projected. A junior officer swallowed hard. American Third Army elements have crossed the river ahead of schedule. A fist struck the table. That is impossible. Their fuel lines cannot support it. But the reports kept coming. Patton's armor was bypassing strongpoints. Infantry followed behind, mopping up. German units found themselves cut off, encircled, isolated without warning. Roads once thought secure were suddenly death traps. The reserve army, carefully held back, painstakingly rebuilt, was now exposed. And it was running out of time. Patton knew the risk. He knew his supply lines were stretched thin. He knew his flanks were vulnerable. He knew one counterattack could tear his spearhead apart. He did not slow down. He stood over a map, jaw clenched, ivory-handled pistols heavy on his belt. His voice was sharp, absolute. We're not stopping. If we stop, they regroup. If they regroup, this war drags on for another year. An aide hesitated. Sir, German armor is reported ahead. Significant numbers. Patton looked up. His eyes were calm. Almost cold. Good. Then we'll finish it. The clash came at dawn. German panzers emerged from the fog like steel ghosts. Tigers and Panthers rolled into position, guns swinging toward the advancing Americans. Artillery thundered. The ground shook. Shells tore through trees and earth alike. The German reserve army had been ordered to hold. To counterattack. To break Patton's momentum. They were desperate men, fighting for a nation already collapsing behind them. And Patton struck first. American artillery opened up in coordinated barrages. Air support screamed down from the clouds, bombs ripping open armored columns. Shermans charged forward, firing on the move. Infantry advanced under cover of smoke, rifles and machine guns blazing. The battlefield dissolved into chaos. Orders were shouted. Radios crackled. Tanks burned. German commanders tried to stabilize the line, but Patton refused to let them breathe. He shifted axes of advance mid-battle. He punched through weak points with brutal precision. Units that survived one engagement found themselves flanked hours later. Encirclement closed like a steel noose. In a shattered farmhouse used as a forward command post, a German colonel stared at his map in disbelief. "They're everywhere," he whispered. "How are they everywhere?" There was no answer. Fuel was gone. Ammunition dwindled. Communications collapsed. One by one, German battalions vanished from the board, not destroyed outright, but surrounded, cut off, rendered irrelevant. The reserve army was being dismantled piece by piece. And the High Command finally understood. This was not a battle. This was annihilation. Back in Germany, the mood turned grim. An officer entered the command room, pale and shaking. He saluted, then spoke without preamble. "The reserve army, it no longer exists as a coherent force." Silence. Another officer asked quietly. "What do you mean?" The reply came hollow and final. "Encircled. Destroyed. Captured. Scattered." A chair scraped against the floor. Someone muttered a curse. They had held that army back for months. They had sacrificed divisions, cities, entire regions to preserve it. And Patton had erased it in days. In the ruins of a bombed-out headquarters, German generals argued in low, furious tones. "He is reckless. He is unstoppable. He fights like a force of nature." One voice cut through them all. "This is not just Patton. This is the consequence of delay. Of hesitation. Of believing time was on our side." No one disagreed. They all knew the truth now. The last reserve was gone. The Western Front was open. And nothing stood between the Allies and the heart of Germany. Patton did not celebrate. He moved on. His tanks rolled forward past wreckage and prisoners. Snow fell softly over destroyed armor and abandoned weapons. American soldiers, exhausted and hollow-eyed, watched long columns of German captives shuffle eastward. They had survived impossible odds. They had fought desperate men. They had followed one decisive leader who refused to accept limits. And it had worked. Weeks later, intelligence summaries circulated through Allied headquarters. One line stood out, underlined in red. "German High Command acknowledges the destruction of their final operational reserve by Patton's Third Army." Authority had spoken. History had recorded it. The war was not yet over. But its outcome was no longer in doubt. Patton stood at the edge of a frozen road, watching his armor disappear into the distance. He exhaled slowly, the steam of his breath vanishing into the cold air. Somewhere behind enemy lines, the German High Command faced the consequences of a single, catastrophic truth. They had bet everything on one last army. And Patton had destroyed it.